And joining me now to discuss really the full anthem, the entire 5 stanzas, is Dr. Reba Shom, director of the Tagore Center, also a well-known Kolkata historian, and of course an exponent of Rabindranath Sangeet. And I'm also joined by Sudhir Chanda, who's a music teacher and alumni of Shanti Niketan, and also one of India's best-known exponents of Rabindranath Sangeet. Thank you both very much for joining me tonight. Dr. Reba Shom, as we listen to those magical words set to music for the first time, many would ask, what took so long? Why is it that these beautiful words were known to scholars of Guru Rabindranath Tagore, but not to India?
Well, one has to see the historical context of this song composition. It was in 1911, and King George V had come for the Delhi Darbar, which announced that the partition of Bengal, which had caused so much a problem, was now rescinded. Now, it's interesting because in the same year, this was in December, King George came to Kolkata for what was called Borodin, or Christmas. And Tagore had been asked by friends that why don't you compose a song to commemorate the occasion, because Kolkata was the place where the Congress was in session.
Yes.
Now, Tagore's first response to this was he was quite bewildered, and he felt that he had, as he writes in a letter, Mone Uttap, he was anguished, that why on earth would he have to write on such an occasion? But then he did the needful, but he did it with a certain ambivalence in the wording. Now, this song was sung for the very first time publicly on the 28th of December at the Calcutta session of the Congress. And much later, this was in, say, 1930, that again in Kolkata, at the Congress Working Committee session, this song was adopted as a national song. And Tagore himself sang it several times when he went abroad. In Moscow, for example, in 1930, he sings this to the peasant commune, but he sings only the first stanza. Coming back to your question, the first stanza is what he sang, and the rest of the stanzas he did put to music, but they were not really sung. Much later there was a controversy, because in that first stanza there is a reference to Adhinayaka, the captain, and there were many detractors who tried to say that there was perhaps a certain tone of servility in Tagore. And Tagore was very saddened by this. And he replied in a letter to Pulin Bihari Sen, much later in 1937, that nobody really bothered to read the rest of the stanzas. Because in the rest of the stanzas, I talk about the eternal charioteer, as we heard just now in the rendition. The eternal charioteer who takes India forward through rough terrain. And he then goes on to say, Tagore goes on to say, that this eternal charioteer could never have been George V, VI, or indeed any other George. But it was a certain divine presence that is also there in our collective unconscious, and which takes us on the way forward.
And he addressed, of course, that divine presence so many times in his work. Mr. Sudhir Chanda, when you hear those words today, do you feel that this perhaps coincides with a new interest as we mark the 150th year of Guru Rabindranath Tagore? Do you think this marks a new interest amongst the younger generation as well? And do you feel that this, perhaps, the entire national anthem will help in doing that?
Yes, of course. They will find it really, they will enthuse them, no doubt. But which strikes me is that why this deviation? Was it really needed? It was not needed at all. And the tune is always, it was always there. It was a complete song when it was first composed by Tagore.
When you say deviation, you mean the full 5 stanzas?
Yes, sometimes there is Bengali language and other languages also. Why this, I don't understand. That was not needed at all. And some tune is also, sometimes other tunes come in. Why that, I don't understand.
Dr. Shom, as somebody, of course, both of you are famous exponents of Rabindra Sangeet, do you think that this perhaps the music company does this in a bit to popularize it? Does it actually popularize the work of Guru Tagore amongst the younger generation who may not have even known of this? It was in the archives of Shanti Niketan.
Well, I think I'd respond to that if I may. There is a slight deviation,
yes,
but I think that's stylistic. And that adds to the flavor. I think today, now that the copyright is gone over Tagore's works, which Vishwabharati had, slight deviations sometimes make the song more appealing to the younger generation.
Right.
And you must remember that the song is written very Sanskritized Bengali, and particularly the first stanza, which is why it is so easily sung by the whole of India.
And
many of the remaining stanzas have very many Bengali words which do not quite lend themselves
so
to
easily
the Hindi
to
language.
Yes,
so
but,
easily.
Yes, but Dr. Shom, Mr. Chanda, I think just the fact, I mean, it's a wonderful day today to hear that full anthem in the entire 5 stanzas. Of course, differences will always be there, but I think everyone in India today agrees that it is as moving, as magical as it was.
And as relevant,
as relevant.
That's important.
As it was that Independence Day over 60 years ago. Thank you so much, Dr. Reba Shom, Mr. Sudhir Chanda, for joining me tonight.
NDTV's cricket app, Android and iPhone, fastest scorecard, special analysis, and much more. Download free. ndtv.com/apps.